When you buy a home, what actually comes with it? What things are included, what's not, and what needs to be written into the contract to avoid problems later. My name is Zachary Soccio-Marandola. I'm a real estate lawyer here in Toronto, and I help people like you close real estate deals every single day. Now, when it comes to these inclusions in a home, we need to understand the difference between chattels and fixtures, because that classification tells us what's included in the sale of a home and how that contract needs to be drafted. So a chattel is a personal property that is not permanently attached to the home. Chattels are not included in the sale unless they're specifically written into the contract. Now, a fixture, on the other hand, is property that has been attached to the home or land in a way that makes it part of the real estate. Now, fixtures are presumed to be included with the property unless they're specifically noted. So to be clear, fixtures by default are included with the sale. Chattels by default are not. This is the law in Ontario real estate transactions. Now, the only way to change that default rule is through the contract. So if a buyer wants certain chattel to stay, it must be written into the agreement of purchase and sale. If a seller wants to keep a certain fixture, it must also be written into the agreement. Now, the Ontario Standard Agreement of Purchase and Sale provides a section where these items can be included. All chattels that you want to stay need to be listed, and all fixtures that don't come with the house need to be noted. If it's not written here, those default rules apply. So with that framework in mind, let's look at some of the common examples of chattels and fixtures. So when it comes to chattels, these are going to be things like appliances. So that would be your fridge, stove, microwave, washer, dryer. For the most part, these are things that are attached by a plug. Furniture. So if the buyers want an item like the dining table or a certain couch to stay with the property, these need to be included under chattels. Chattels would also include TVs or removable electronics, curtains, drapes, patio furniture, artwork. Now, when it comes to fixtures, we're talking about things like light fixtures, built-in appliances, so think a dishwasher that's actually built into the counter, or an island stovetop. We're looking at integrated shelving, mechanical systems, so things like your furnace and AC. These are typically fixtures. Now, it's more common to see chattels included in an agreement rather than a fixture excluded. However, there are certain fixtures I have seen in my time closing deals. So one of the more common ones is a specific light fixture, and this is usually like a high-value chandelier. I've seen that a few times specifically excluded from the agreement, so the buyers know that that doesn't come with the property. I have also seen built-in or integrated shelving, and that was specific with a garage storage system. So it was attached in the garage, but the seller specifically excluded it from the agreement. But remember, these are just the common examples. This is me explaining what I've seen in my experience over the last 10 years. So it's important to understand that there's no official list that says exactly what is always a chattel and what is always a fixture. It's not always black and white. When there is a disagreement, a court has to step in and decide whether something is a chattel or a fixture. And when a court looks at this, they look to apply a practical legal test that focuses on three things. It looks at if and how the item is attached to the property. It looks at why it was installed and the nature of the item itself. So if something is installed to improve the property, it usually points towards it being a fixture. If it's there mainly for personal use of the homeowners, it usually points toward it being a chattel. That analysis is what ultimately determines whether an item stays with the property or only transfers if it was specifically included in the contract. Let's consider this with a common question I get: the TV wall mount. Now, on its face, it's attached to the wall, which might make it seem like a fixture. But when you apply that legal test, looking at how it's attached and conversely, how much damage its removal would actually cause to the property, along with why it's there and what it's there for, I think it points more towards being a chattel. A TV mount is installed to hold a specific removable electronic. The mount itself is easily removable, and any damage from taking it down is typically minor and repairable. Because of that, to me, it falls under a chattel when I apply that legal test. So if a buyer wants a TV mount included for some reason, the safest approach is to specifically list it as a chattel included in the contract. I know everyone wants some official list of what's a chattel and what's a fixture, or for me to sit here listing every questionable item and providing my analysis. But the fact is there's no clear distinctions. Some items may be chattels in one instance and fixtures in another. So there is one very important piece of advice you should be taking from this video, and that is be as detailed as possible in the agreement of purchase and sale. Understanding what's commonly treated as a chattel and what's commonly A fixture is important, and knowing how the courts analyze these disputes does help you make good decisions. But none of that replaces a clear, well-written agreement of purchase and sale. The contract is what ultimately governs the deal, and the more clear it is, the less room there is for assumptions, arguments, or problems on closing. So if you're a buyer, that means taking the time to actually inventory what's in the property and think carefully about what you expect to stay. If you want something included, don't leave it up for dispute. Put it in the contract. If you're a seller, the same applies in reverse. If there's something you plan to take with you, even if you think it should be obvious, specifically exclude it. Assumptions are where the disputes start, and details matter. If it's a specific brand, model, or type of appliance, say so. I've seen situations where sellers swap out items at the last minute and try to rely on vague contract language to justify it. Clear drafting helps prevent that. So yes, understanding how the law treats chattels and fixtures gives you a framework. Understanding how the courts analyze these disputes gives you guidance, but clear, specific drafting is what actually protects you. If you've run into a chattels or fixtures issue before, maybe something you assumed would stay didn't, or something you thought was excluded caused a problem, leave a comment down below. I'm interested in hearing it. And if you find these kind of behind the scenes real estate law videos helpful, go ahead and subscribe to the channel to catch the next one. I post a new video every week breaking down practical issues for buyers, sellers, and realtors. Thanks for watching.